Tin Pan Alley refers to the songwriters and music publishers who use sheet music to make their fortunes by building, sculpting, and marketing songs for a mass audience. Tin Pan Alley in New York City was the popular music publishing center of the world from about 1885 to the 1920s. The lyrics of music from this period suggest that the U.S. was a peaceful, happy, and prosperous place. The many songs about the past describe warm memories of happy and innocent times in rural or small town settings. Regardless of the happy times the music suggests, we cannot forget that Tin Pan Alley was not about love, peace, and happiness. It was about selling songs. Their chosen method during that time was to provide musical entertainment that allowed people to escape the realities of the hardships of life and their own life's troubles. The music of the times was not as much a reflection of the times as it was a reflection of people's desires for how the times and their life should be. Teddy Roosevelt is considered by many to be the first modern president. He believed that he could influence the media and shape legislation through what he called his bully pulpit. Presidents use their bully pulpit to this day to influence public opinion. Roosevelt's progressive reforms were known as his Square Deal. Teddy Roosevelt started by using the Sherman Antitrust Act to bust up the Northern Securities Company, which had a monopoly on Northwestern railroads. Roosevelt was successful in breaking up Northern Securities. He filed over 44 antitrust suits and won a number of them. He did make a distinction between breaking up bad trusts and regulating good trusts. 140,000 Pennsylvania coal miners went on strike in 1902. After 5 months, coal reserves got dangerously low, and Roosevelt threatened to take over the mines. Finally, both sides agreed to work with a third party to mediate their differences. This is known as arbitration. Both sides agree to go by whatever the arbitrator decides. This set a new principle. Whenever a strike threatened the public welfare, the government was expected to intervene. The Hepburn Act regulated the railroad industry and set maximum rates they could charge users. In 1906, Upton Sinclair wrote the book The Jungle. In his book, he detailed the sickening conditions in the meatpacking industry. He discovered that there were rat problems in the meatpacking warehouses. They would set out poisonous bread that the rats would eat. The rats would die. Then the rats, bread, and the meat would all be mixed together to be sold to the public. Roosevelt was nauseated by this and invited Sinclair to the White House for a visit. He vowed to find out if this was true and stop it if it was. The result was the passage of the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act. These halted the sale of contaminated food. Also, drug companies could no longer lie about their products. Their labels had to be truthful. Teddy Roosevelt was also a conservationist. This meant that he treasured our natural resources to some extent. He set aside some wilderness areas to be preserved, while others would be developed for the common good. Teddy Roosevelt handpicked William Howard Taft to replace him. He tried to consolidate Teddy Roosevelt's progressive reforms, not expand them. In fact, he never really felt comfortable being president. His cautious approach to progressive reform policy angered many. He was never given credit for his progressive efforts. He busted over 90 trusts, as compared to Roosevelt's 44. Taft campaigned for president by promising to lower tariffs. Remember, a tariff is a tax placed on imported goods. This is part of the progressive movement. The progressives in the House of Representatives passed the Payne Bill, which did just that. However, conservatives in the Senate passed an alternative plan called the Aldrich Bill, which made fewer cuts and even raised some rates. Taft signed a compromise bill that combined many aspects of both bills called the Payne-Aldrich Tariff and defended the conservatives who favored raising the tariffs. This angered progressives. The Mann-Elkins Act of 1910 gave the Interstate Commerce Commission the power to suspend new railroad rates and oversee the telephone, telegraph, and cable companies. Taft angered progressives even more with his conservation policy. He did add large tracts to the Appalachians to the National Forest Reserves. However, Taft sided with his conservative Secretary of the Interior, Richard Bollinger, over the progressive Chief of the Forest Service, Gifford Pinchot, when he removed 1 million acres of forest and mining land from the reserve list. There was now a clear split in the Republican Party between conservatives led by Taft and the progressives. This leads us to the election of 1912. Teddy Roosevelt had been in Africa shooting big game during his retirement. He returned and decided to run against Taft in the Republican primary. The progressive Republicans now had a leader, but unfortunately for him, it was very difficult to beat an incumbent. An incumbent is someone who's currently holding office. The Republicans select Taft as their candidate. The progressive wing of the Republican Party refused to support Taft, broke with the party to form a third party headed by Teddy Roosevelt. This was known as the Bull Moose Party. They called it this because he boasted that he was as strong as a bull moose. In their progressive platform, they wanted to support the initiative, referendum, and recall. They also wanted to regulate big business. This program is called New Nationalism. Woodrow Wilson would be the Democratic nominee for president. He was a reform governor from New Jersey. Here are the results of the election. The progressive-minded Republican voters supported Roosevelt, thereby splitting the Republican vote. This allowed Wilson to carry most of the states on the way to an easy win in the Electoral College. Remember, third-party candidates impact elections by taking votes away from one of the two major parties. Here, Roosevelt took votes from Taft, allowing Wilson to win. Now we're going to look at Wilson's presidency. President Wilson's progressive program is known as New Freedom. The first bill passed was the Clayton Antitrust Act of 1914. It made it illegal to acquire the stock of another company if it created a monopoly. If a company did create a monopoly, its officers could be prosecuted. Congress also created the Federal Trade Commission. Its job was to stop unfair business practices. Staying true to his progressive roots, Wilson got Congress to lower tariffs for the first time since the Civil War. Since government cut tariffs as a source of revenue, it had to make that money up somewhere to run its programs. To make up for this money, they enacted the 16th Amendment. The 16th Amendment put a graduated tax on income that people earned. It was not an equal tax. Your tax depends on how much money you earn. The more you earn, the more taxes you pay. This is still in place today. One of the most important reforms Wilson passed dealt with financial reform. In 1913, he signed the Federal Reserve Act. This established a decentralized private banking system under federal control. It divided the nation into 12 districts and created a regional central bank in each district. The goal of the Federal Reserve Act was to create a national monetary system and financial stability. It regulates the money supply to prevent inflation and financial collapse. Remember that the progressive movement wanted to end corruption and put more power in the hands of the people. Originally, state legislatures had the power to select U.S. senators. Many state legislatures were influenced by political machines who used their money to convince state legislatures to select senators with favorable policies. The 17th Amendment, originally pushed by the populists, allows for the people to directly elect U.S. senators. Ladies, Wilson should be one of your favorite presidents. You won the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1919. It would only take 1 year for the states to ratify the vote. The National Park Service Organic Act, passed in 1916, established the National Park Service, an agency of the U.S. Department of the Interior. It was created to promote and regulate the use of national parks, monuments, and reservations to conserve them for future generations. Another major failure of the progressive movement was in immigration. The movement failed to help immigrants or prevent immigration restrictions that would soon be passed. The United States Immigration Commission, or the Dillingham Commission, was a special congressional committee formed in February of 1907 by the United States Congress, which was then under intense pressure from various nativist groups to study the origins and consequences of recent immigration to the United States. The commission ended its work in 1911, concluding that immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe posed a serious threat to American society and culture and should be greatly reduced in the future. The commission proposed the enactment of reading and writing tests as the most feasible single method of restricting undesirable immigration.